Hello. Good evening, middle of the night. Hope you've been well. There may or may not be a video version of this. If you are watching the video version, you may notice the new microphone I have in frame. This is not how you're supposed to use this microphone, but I am going to be speaking very softly just because, again, it's the middle of the night and I don't want to be that guy. I also don't want to compete with a lot of background noise or blah, blah, blah. So that is why I'm using the microphone the way I am. But just know that this is not how you're supposed to use it, I think. It's been a long time. I wonder actually when the last time I posted anything was. Wow. Okay, so the last time I posted anything was March 4th, 2021. Today is July 5th. All right, well, it's been 4 months and it's been a crazy 4 months. It's gone by in a blur. And honestly, I'm pretty tired. I'm burnt out. Not in a bad way, but just the reality, I think, of trying to juggle so many things. And I think that's the majority of what I'm going to be talking about today. There's two things I want to accomplish. One is just sit down with myself, have a little bit of time to reflect on where things are. What is the state of things? And how I'm feeling about everything, what I've learned, what I'm going to be doing moving forward, and things to focus on, things to be aware of moving forward. And the other thing is planning for this video that I want to make about quitting videography. I technically already made this video around 2 years ago, I want to say, but that was very similar to this, where it's very unscripted, off the cuff, and more of a vent than anything. It lacked a lot of structure, which I want to do this time around. A lot of people have been asking on the Boy with a Camera channel and just in my personal life asking why I'm giving up videography, and so clearly they haven't watched that long-winded video, which obviously I don't expect people to do. But for me, I do want to consolidate all of that because I think there are things to learn from my experience that I think it seems like some people will relate to. It's something that's just part of life where you question where you're at, what you're doing, where you're headed. And I think that those are all elements that came into play in my decision of wanting to walk away from videography. But yeah, I want to use this time to, I guess, plan my thoughts and organize my thoughts for that video because it's such a large topic that can hit on a number of different factors. That I don't think I can. I need to take the time to really consolidate everything and organize everything because as of right now, it's going to be a mess. And I've made so many messy videos already in this last little year that I want to challenge myself to go back to the first few videos that I think were relatively well polished and had a point to it and yada, yada, yada. But that'll be later on. Right now, I want to start with recapping, really, what happened in these last 4 months. I think it's more suitable to back up even to January because that is when I started school. I went back. I left my job in 2019 and 2020 was obviously kind of a whirlwind blur of events. Both socially and just, well, yeah. For me personally, I moved away from Surrey. I was living there in that city for about 4 years. And then I went back to my parents, lived with them during the kind of the bulk of the pandemic and reconnected, did a lot of soul searching, I think, continued to make YouTube videos, continued to do a little bit of freelance to keep afloat. But I noticed that my productivity drops a lot whenever I'm with my family. And I think that's, normal. But I wasn't happy with that. And ultimately, it's probably an excuse at the end of the day. But I don't know. The second I moved out, I'm still living in Abbotsford, but I moved out, living on my own. And it's been exactly what I needed, I guess. So yeah, I just needed that space, and especially kind of scenarios like this where it's the middle of the night and I can just really dig in to a little bit of quiet time to sort my thoughts out, record something, and yeah, just get stuff done. After the move back here, again, just worked on some freelance stuff because now I had to start paying rent, so that picked up a little bit. I was also continuing to make stuff, make content, and just trying to understand and navigate where I want to head in that direction, testing the waters, trying out new things, and just really enjoying myself though in that regard. It was a very happy time, and I was connecting with a lot of different people through Zoom calls, and just great. So then once school rolled around, which happened first week of January in 2021, luckily the program was very easy, but it was time consuming. Basically though, it wasn't like where I'm trying to go is the world of higher education. I think right now that is where I've fallen. The initial goal was academic advising, and I'll get more into that later, but I still think that's the goal. But I also realized that higher education, that entire world is very vast, is very large, and there's many, I can see myself in many different departments, I guess, or just, I don't know. There's a number of things that I've realized that I want to accomplish in my life, and accomplishing in terms of either impact or influence. And I'm just finding that, yeah, there's a lot of different ways to accomplish such a thing in the world of higher education. So I'm trying to, I took a step back a couple months ago and just realized, okay, there's not one way to do this. I can find happiness in multiple different avenues. But the initial thing was academic advising. And the main thing about taking this program was to get my foot in the door at the university level, get involved with either student life or like student jobs, and just begin to network and build experience and work my way up to where I want to go. So that being said, the program itself was more about like office stuff and like admin stuff. So it's very basic kind of clerical functions, and the courses were very practical in that sense, where it's like a communications course, you're learning Excel, you're learning Microsoft Access, very practical applications for an administrative position. It was a 6-month intensive program, so it did eat up a lot of my time, and I was struggling to create content alongside of it, as well as doing all my freelance stuff. And I think that's why I am a little burnt out now. It's just, it was very demanding overall. It felt like an endless grind. But at the end of the day, it was all very worth it. I took the course in Abbotsford, a university in Abbotsford, and it really put things into perspective in how I view universities and how I view education. It's a smaller university than the one I went to for my undergrad, and it made me realize the shortcomings of a large institution. The level of depth of the connection I had with my professors was something that I couldn't even imagine at the bigger university I went to. Although I did have 1 or 2 professors, maybe 3, that I would say I had a really good relationship and a deep relationship with during my undergrad. But also the other thing that goes along with that is that I think I was such a typical early 20s kid in university that I was just navigating. I was busy figuring stuff out, learning, wasting a lot of time with meaningless things. I say wasting, but in reality, obviously, nothing's really a waste of time. But yeah, I got really close with the professors in this program that I took this year. I got to pick their brains, just speak about life, about social matters, things that I was seeing, observing, education in general, just a lot of things, a lot of really, really great conversations, and I would love to maintain the relationship that I've built with these professors in the future. So that was, I think, January until the beginning of June, was doing this program and just balancing a lot of life stuff, doing the freelance things, doing a lot of stuff for my family, with my family, trying to be more intentional about balancing all of that stuff. Challenging, but worth it. Yeah, even just thinking about it is actually very tiring. I feel like I had very, very, very little time. Like, I think every minute of my day was being used, and even though I was using all of that time, it didn't really feel productive because it wasn't really, I guess, it was all taking me in the direction I wanted to go. So I guess that reflects a little bit about my little impatience in this journey. But the other side of things is just I didn't have time to really create the content that I wanted to create. And I think that was also very illuminating to me because it showed me how much I value creating stuff. And I really like doing this YouTube thing. I think right now I just got over 3,000 subscribers or something. So it's not a big channel by any means. It's not really making a lot of money, but it's just so freeing, I think, and very fun to create the stuff that I feel like creating either on a whim or that I'm passionate about. Right now, I have 2 more client edits that I have to do, and then I'll be done. I was supposed to be done by last week, but I keep on taking a few more gigs here and there, just for that security, I think, of the money. And then the older clients that I have, I don't really consider them clients, right? I've spent so many years and so much time with these people that if they want to do a video project, I'm totally down to do that, and I want to do that. I will say that there will probably come a point where I'll have to stop even those fun projects, although maybe if there's an avenue to explore new equipment and make it make sense in the context of my YouTube stuff, then yeah, I'll do those projects. But I am really realizing, like, it hit me hard this year how limited I am in terms of time. And I think half of that can be attributed to maybe a lack of grit that I need to develop. But the other half is, I think, attributed to me recognizing, or having learned that I do need time like this, just downtime, where I'm not in a running state, I guess, of like, or in a rush to finish something. That brings us to June, or actually even before June. During this whole process of school and whatnot, I was actually looking at job postings and beginning to see what I can do. But also, funnily enough, through one of the video gigs that I did was with the university at a different department than I was involved. How do I phrase this? It was one of the departments at the university that hired me as a videographer. Had nothing to do with my school program or anything like that. And I guess they liked the way I handled things during the process, from pre-production to post-production, and basically just got offered a job through that. And I applied for the job. It's weird. I got offered it, but I still had to go through like an interview process, obviously, and then writing a resume. Writing a resume in that whole world has been also very enlightening, I think. I hate trying to sell myself, and I hate trying to embellish certain things. Like, for example, I created a nonprofit group organization back in 2015 and ran it for like 2 years or whatever. But the thing is, you look at it from one angle, one vantage point, and sure, yeah, it's like a pretty great feat. But also you take a step back and look at things relative to other organizations, and it wasn't anything. It was very fun. It was just like kids being kids. It was just, yeah, I don't know. But then to try and take that and to make it sound like some amazing, great thing was very difficult for me. Realizing that I still have a lot of growing to do in that area of finding that good balance, because obviously I can't keep selling myself short and downplaying all that I am and all that I've done. But at the same time, it just did not sit right with me to try to make myself seem bigger than I am. Luckily, throughout this whole process, though, I don't think I compromised on that. I don't think I strayed away from painting an accurate picture of who I am and how I think and what I feel, what I value, and my skill set. I think I was very transparent in my shortcomings and my strengths. And yeah, I now have a job that I'm going to start in August at the university. So, and I'm very excited too, because I like the department and their mission, their values. It's related to people with disabilities. And if you know me in any sort of capacity, you'll know that my brother has physical and mental disabilities from birth, which is another thing that's really weighing down on me, I realize. I don't know if yeah, we can have a tangent on that. As of late, I think I've been in a lot of emotional stress, I think, which has been bothersome. I don't know. If everybody has a weak thing, or like an Achilles heel, for example, for me, that Achilles heel has always been my brother, because there's a lot of guilt whenever it comes to that. I feel like I have underserved my brother for all of my life, and even now, like, as much as I think I can confidently say that I'm a person of integrity and values and morals, I haven't shown that in my relationship with my brother. Like, I've tried very hard, I think, over the years to be a better brother, to take some of the weight off the shoulders of my parents. But it's something that I've just been unable to do. Like during this year, living apart from my family, but living close to my family, I've struggled to maintain balance where I go home and help out with some of the things that my parents need to do for my brother. And that's literally things like changing diapers, feeding, bathing, taking him out for drives, helping my mom with laundry because my brother creates a lot of laundry, and then navigating the other things, a lot of things I probably just won't share. But I've always kind of just copped out, I feel like, and it's tiring, right? Like, it's a full-time thing, and I'm still trying to get my career pivot going. I need to create this YouTube stuff, not just for fun and passion anymore, but I'm beginning to see money, and I want to grow it to a relatively large amount that I hope I will be able to give to my parents in a timely fashion, that they can actually enjoy the benefits of that money before they pass. And that clock has been ticking for the last 5 years, I think, if not longer, where I've become very cognizant of the remaining time that my parents have. My dad is getting older by the day. My mom has been destroyed by life, I think, just by diabetes and stress and being rear-ended on multiple occasions whenever she's at a red light. Just not doing very well physically, I think, for the last decade. So seeing all of that stuff with my parents, and then noticing that it's getting harder for them to take care of my brother, and I have to start thinking, okay, well, when they pass, what is the plan? What do I do? How can I take care of my brother while still pursuing everything else, while also trying to start my own family eventually? How does that all fall into place? And as of right now, if that were to happen, things would fall apart. Like, I don't have systems in place. I don't have structures in place and the capacity to do that. On top of that, I don't have the skills necessary to be a proper caregiver to my brother. Like, I'm still putting in the hours to help around him, and I'll still try to take him on drives, help my family, like, just support. But it's kind of like indirect support. It's not the actual hard skills of, okay, cook for him, feed him, bathe him, all that stuff. It's very external stuff. And I can't say in good faith that I'm doing as much as my parents. Nowhere close, right? So when it comes to that point where I have to take over, I'm not confident at this point that I can. And yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how I'm supposed to navigate that. And I think that will always be somewhere in the back of my mind. I think that's why I need to rush. I think I need to really sprint in these next 2 years to become, at the very least, financially stable. Not just stable, but thriving to the point where I can buy time. I think that's what I'm realizing, is that I don't need to buy anything else in life. I just need to buy time. Because if I do need to take care of my brother, that is something that I'm going to need a lot of time. All right. So with that out of the way, that brings us to June. In June, I started my practicum, and basically all my classes were wrapped, but I had to do this month-long practicum, and that was with the advising center at the university I was with, which is a really amazing opportunity that I wouldn't have gotten unless I took this program. And my instructor luckily made the connection with the advising center, and I got to work with the director of advising. And it was a little unconventional, this practicum, because I guess I came with an undergrad already, and I came with a little bit of different goal in mind and different skill set. So although it was funny because it was kind of outside the parameters of my skill set, because I had to do a literature review of just what the current landscape of academic advising is. But my undergrad, like things like writing stuff in APA, my undergrad was all about MLA because I was doing English, language, and lit. So research methods and that kind of stuff it was all kind of new and foreign to me. The formatting was foreign to me. Everything was kind of foreign to me. But it was so cool, honestly, to have an excuse to just sit down and research and read papers and just see how other people, like the topics were very, very interesting to me as well. How the field of academic advising has been advancing, has been developing over the years. I got to dive into the history of it that I wasn't aware of before. Things like how it began as a very transactional job to just help students with course planning and graduation requirements and all that stuff. It's very clerical in nature. And I think it's from like the 50s or 60s or 70s. I should know this, but it began to change into a more developmental direction where the goal of the profession is now more geared towards questioning how can we develop students into high functioning members of society? How can we teach them about their finances and their financial wellness, as well as just everything around that, their career? How do we better prepare them for today's workforce? How can we also develop them as complete people? So with that, I think comes things like empathy, reasoning, all this. There's so much room for different methods and approaches. Like one thing that stood out to me, and this is kind of an underdeveloped approach, is Socratic advising. And if you know me, I love anything to do with Socrates. Not so much like him as a person. I don't really know much about him as a person, but I did study a little bit of like Plato's works in university, and just the depiction of Socrates in those works is something that I've really admired over the years. Not something that I've really dug into, unfortunately, and I hope to be able to change that in the coming years. But just his method of questioning everything and teaching through questioning. I don't know. There's little elements and pieces that I've tried to really apply to my own life unconsciously, I think, after being exposed to those works. But yeah, so like people are trying to take elements of that and infuse them into their advising approaches with students, which I thought was so cool. And that's something that I really want to hit on in this video that I'm trying to create for Boy with a Camera about why I'm quitting videography. Where I'm getting lost through is obviously that is a different type of genre almost. I don't know. Like, people interested in videography, I'm assuming, aren't going to be interested in academic advising, maybe. But that is a huge piece. It's the fact that I found a passion in some other thing. Like, to me, videography has been like the watered down. Oh my gosh, the watered down version of videography as an industry to me is not a very deep one. Like, I don't know. I don't want to obviously downplay videography, because I think it's a great thing and skill and talent and industry maybe. There's great people in it, right? As is the standard for any industry. But I was at a point that I felt like I couldn't be me completely while doing the videography stuff. Like, obviously I can be me as a personality perspective and whatnot, but I don't know. Like, I really am enthralled by the notion of developing younger people into high-functioning members of society. I think this has stuck with me since high school, if not earlier, is that my idea of impact and purpose in that regard, although my thoughts around purpose now have kind of changed, but that will be, I think, for a future topic. The main thing is that the impact I want to have, actually, I don't know. It's not even like, oh, I want to have an impact. I want to have a legacy. I want to blah, blah, blah. I really don't care about that kind of stuff anymore. But I think it's almost like a civil responsibility at this point. And God, this is going to be so difficult to put into words and to edit. I think the main thing is there's really no logical reason to live. I think I've mentioned this in a number of different instances before, but it's really hard to find logical reasons to live. Like, why do humans exist? Why do we live? Like, the only way it really makes sense is to go back to a very primitive biological reasoning of just, yeah, we're just animals. We're alive. Don't think too deep about it. Just reproduce and move on. Like, that's it. But then you kind of realize humans are very, very intelligent. At some points in 2020 and 2021, that was questionable. And multiple instances in history that's questionable, but humans are intelligent by nature is something that I think most people will agree on. And we have developed very complex emotional structures in our brains and the capacity for these weird lines of thinking and feeling and acting, right? Just from a behavioral standpoint and a cognitive standpoint and an emotional standpoint and social standpoint, humans are just very, very complex. So it gets me thinking that maybe there is purpose and reasoning for humans' existence beyond the primal stuff. But I don't know. That's something I just need to sit down and figure out. I don't know how I feel about all of that stuff, or like where exactly my thoughts are on that stuff, but that's kind of been pushing me, I think, to really it's kind of a reverse engineering, honestly, because I've always had this strong drive to do something for humanity. Like, there's a social responsibility as a human to contribute to humans. This is so weird to talk about. Anyways, so with all that said, I find the most impact, or I was finding that I felt most fulfilled and felt like I was actually doing something whenever I had long, in-depth conversations one-on-one with people, and seeing people either overcome very difficult moments in their lives, or having moments of just like eureka moments that they understand something about themselves that they didn't before. Seeing that kind of magic happen in people was always very intriguing and exciting for me. The drawback of that, though, is that never gets translated to paper, to success, to, like returning back to the resume things. I think I have developed a lot of my communication skills and thinking skills through these conversations with people. There's endless hours of just meaningless, either beer or like whatever other things with people, talking about stuff, processing stuff, walking with people. And they were never like long. Some of them, most of them were not long-term things. It was just like I would pop into people's lives, spend a couple of really, really intimate moments with them, get them. It's not like I got them to the next thing, but I would like to think that I contributed to their journeys. And after that, I just dip. I move on to the next person. But again, that doesn't really lead to anything that can be proven on paper or validated in society standards, which never bothered me. But now I'm realizing that that's a shortcoming. I can't maximize on that. I can't capitalize on that. The only way I can do that is by applying the skills that I've picked up from those experiences into new directions, which is what I'm doing, what I've been doing. And yeah, I guess there's fruit in that. The reason I'm mentioning all of that, though, is not because I'm bitter about it or anything like that. It's just something that I have now connected to the field of academic advising in particular, but also higher education in general. Like that is the one way that I can do the exact same thing, but also make a living off of that so that I can feed myself, survive, do all that world stuff that I really, really don't care about, which is what has been stressing me out, I think, over my lifetime, really, is that I never cared about fame or status or like validation from others or anything like that. But that's just simply not realistic, unfortunately. You have to care about that stuff to a certain degree in order to exist in society. And I think it's very naive, and it was very naive and just short-sighted for me to think that I don't need to play within that framework at all in my life. So, long-winded way of saying that I do think that there's a very, very, very strong argument internally to myself that it will be worth it to try out this higher education thing, to really go into university settings and see if I can make a career there. Because I think it aligns with my goals and my vision and everything that I care about. That was simply just not in the realm of videography is something that I think has been true. Because the thing is, in my journey of videography, in my vein of it, because obviously it's a very large industry, anything to do with cameras and video, there's so many just adjacent industries that you can get into. And at the time that I got into video, it's kind of like this weird democratization of video, right? Things were becoming much more accessible. The cameras themselves had so much more technology and so many more features that were previously inaccessible. Anybody could really arguably make a quote unquote movie or short film or whatever. And with like the advent of YouTube and all this stuff, yeah, people can make legitimate careers making very illegitimate films. And I say that not as a negative thing or a knock on the type of videos people were making. It's just non-traditional films, I guess is a better way of putting it. Within that whole thing, I primarily made a career out of making stuff for social media, content for social media. So I think it's very clear then that social media has ties to this whole like capitalism, this whole materialistic side of things, and this need to sell things, whether that be a service, a product, a person, a vision. You're just selling. And I think I came to peace with that by thinking, yeah, well, there's certain things that I'm okay with selling. And I guess that still holds true, right? Like, some people, their stories need to be heard. Their visions need to be realized. And the reality of the matter is they need to be successful in worldly terms, and by society standards in order to achieve those visions. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm still navigating all that stuff. I don't know how I feel about it, because there's part of me that just really wants to reject all of that, and I don't care about any of that. I don't know. My head hurts thinking about all that stuff, which actually is another thing, is that I actually do enjoy thinking, if it's not apparent by now. And my mind has always been thinking, since a young age. Always been questioning, always been bothered, I think. Needlessly distraught, I would say. Needlessly overdramatic about a lot of things and thinking about a lot of things. Videography did not feel like a safe space to have those types of thoughts, right? If you really boil things down, it's just like, hey, be good with your money, be good with your paperwork, be good with your clientele, and just make really sellable content, cool stuff that people can be hyped up by, or low-key manipulated by. And that's it. Like, why are you thinking so deeply about this video concept, that it has to be unique and powerful and authentic and raw, but whatever, all this stuff? I don't know. And just the people I've met, again, great people, but I haven't really met thinkers, right? Like people who are very, very pensive and bothered by the same things that I'm bothered by. And the story of my late 20s, actually, now I'm thinking about it, this is relatively recent, is that has been something that at times breaks me, and at other times I'm completely fine with, and I've accepted, and I'm whatever. But there are times when I realize, like, wow, I didn't think that I thought this, like right now. I think I'm going through that, where it's like, why do I overthink? Is it overthinking, first of all? But the other thing is, like, I have all these thoughts and all these strings of ideas that it's hard to pull them all together and consolidate them. But it also begs the question, so what? What's the point of all this stuff? Where does it get you? What does it do other than maybe stress you out? And I don't have answers for that. So maybe actually that won't be a late 20s thing. That'll be a 30s thing. I think I'll eventually have to unpack all of that and see where that sits in the grand scheme of things, or grand image of who I am and my life. Because I think it does get annoying. And there's also always a part of me that's like, man, your thoughts aren't that profound. Like, they're not deep. So why are you acting like it is? Yeah, things like that. And that's why this quitting videography video is so difficult for me to do. Because really the reason why I'm quitting is because I think I'm quitting because I found something greater elsewhere, is the main thing. It's not the best use of my skills. I'm not that happy doing it. Yeah, I guess that's about it. You know what? I think that's good enough for today. I think I'm tired. I should probably just get to bed. I think that was hopefully a vulnerable talk, right? And hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully, I don't know. I hope you enjoyed that. Honestly, that's about it. Feel free to reach out if you listen to this and you have some things you want to talk about. I hope everybody's healthy and I hope everybody's well. And I will see you hopefully sometime soon, because I want to make much more content than I've been making. And now that it's July and school is done, practicum is done, and I start work in August, I'm hoping this month I'm going to be able to bang out a lot of stuff that I haven't been able to. And yeah, that's it. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.